So my question is, do we at any point this season believe that the 49ers will win a game that doesn't feel like they lost the game?
That's an interesting question. Do you feel like they lost the Thursday night game in Seattle? Did that feel like a loss to you?
No, but that game, Seattle got it to what? They were up 10 or whatever, and Seattle got it to 6. And the one over the Patriots was just kind of like, yeah, they won, but like they haven't had a game where they've won and it's been like, hell yeah, that's a great win. The Jets felt like that at the time. They felt like that at the time, but even then, they couldn't punch the ball in the end zone. They kicked a bunch of field goals, and it turns out the Jets are ass. So,
I think because I went through I took a quick glance at last season's game logs, and I think, and this I might be at fault too for the way I've talked about the team a little bit. We are kind of, we like the collective 49ers observers, I think, are kind of jaded by how good they were last year.
Yes.
In that there were so many blowouts, and whenever like the standard became like, all right, just blow the other team out because that's how good you are. And
sure.
And then we see like basically the same group, and obviously you don't have Brandon Ayuk, you don't have Dre Greenlaw. We see the same group, and it's like we're still holding them to that standard because that's what we're used to.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's time to just punt on that being the standard. Like I had the realization today that like the standard is not going to be them blowing out all of their opponents. And maybe they get there, maybe that changes. But I thought coming into the game, it would look a lot like Jacksonville did last year after their bye, where they won 34-3 or whatever that game was. And it would be like, okay, I said on the pod last week, it would be okay. This is the Niners are going to look like what we're used to against a really banged up Tampa Bay team.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? Like, had Jake Moody not missed 3 kicks, had they not muffed that punt,
sure.
You can make a case at, 3 of 3 from those distances for Moody. Like, say he makes 2. If he makes 2 out of those 3 and you don't get the muff punt, that's a 13-point swing. And then instead of winning by 3, you're winning by 16 and you have 30 plus points. You know what I mean? Like,
and I understand all that, but we've said that after every win. Okay,
no,
well, yeah, if they score in the red zone here and they don't make this mistake and they don't make that mistake, like, hey, that's just them.
But I'm not even talking about the red zone. It's the special team stuff that is so wild to me. Like the special teams are so bad that it's ultimately preventing the 49ers from reaching that standard that I think we're used to. Mm-hmm. Because like for a long time, like I don't know that the Niners were ever like amazing on special teams, but you trusted Robbie Gould not to have a game where he would go miss 3 kicks.
No doubt.
Right. Like Mitch Wishnowsky was never going to be like the net punting yardage king, but he was always going to be really good at pinning opponents deep in their own territory.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like you don't feel good anytime the other team returns a kickoff, and that wasn't the case today. So at least Jake Moody punted it to the end zone and had touchbacks today.
Salute to Jake.
But you felt terrible about the kickoff coverage.
Mm-hmm.
You saw in Minnesota them have a block punt lead to, like, that was probably the biggest play in that game. In LA, you had a fake punt in the most obvious fake punt situation. You had a muff punt today. You had the three missed field goals. It's like at some point, man, like the margins in the NFL are so thin that you cannot just like 13 to 16 points today on special teams. That's what the swing was.
Yep.
You miss 3 field goals and give up a touchdown after a muff punt. It's like it's obviously unacceptable. It's super frustrating. But I think what's even more frustrating from it is that like you look at the numbers and like what this game could have been. The Niners basically outgained Tampa 2-1. They had 413 yards, held Tampa to 215, which is like what you'd expect.
Mm-hmm.
And if you would have told us those numbers before Sunday, you'd be like, oh yeah, Niners win by double digits. Niners win by 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
But because they can't make a kick, or at least they miss 3 of them, then it's much closer. It's much closer than it should have been. So there are a couple different minds to view it. Like, be really frustrated because the special teams is so bad that it almost cost them a game where, all the numbers should say it was at least a 2-score game.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, maybe they did look a little bit better offensively and defensively with, after the bye week with Christian McCaffrey back. So I don't know, man. It's also just hard to win in the NFL. Like, I do respect that a win is a win, and that's where I think the standard of last year has sort of put things out of whack in terms of the way we're viewing this particular team.
Yeah, maybe. If that's the case, then that's terrible news for this year's 49ers team. Because that means they're not a Super Bowl contender. They may not even be a playoff team. Like, that's kind of what today told me. This is not a good version of the Buccaneers. And the Bucs did take like Kansas City to overtime in Kansas City. Like, no doubt. They were a scrappy team. Baker was a baller today. He made some unbelievable plays, especially on that final drive where the Niners were getting pressure and he would not take a sack. And he made that play on Nick Bosa where he's stiff-arming Nick Bosa and completing a game-saving 4th down. Just incredible shit, right? Like, so all credit to them. But no Tristan Wirfs. He went down early in the game. No Chris Godwin. He's out for the year. No Mike Evans. He didn't suit up. No Jalen McMillan. Their number 3 receiver and rookie was out. Their wide receivers had 4 catches for 28 yards. And there was just no reason for them to be in this game. But there is, because the 49ers, for some reason, don't have the fastball that they had last year where they can go beat a team by 4 touchdowns. And maybe and maybe you're right. Maybe it is like it was just the special team stuff today. But that to me is, again, a larger problem, because it's not like, okay, let's say they make the playoffs. The special team stuff isn't just going away. Like, forget the coverage stuff. Forget just basics of catching a punt and not getting blocked into the punt returner. Nate Thomas here in the chat brought that up. Like, that's seems like really basic stuff. Not allowing a free runner at the punter and knowing that there's a fake punt coming. Like, there's just so many things that, like, how do you keep getting this wrong? And I guess, I mean, there's so much to talk about from this, but that was the key takeaway for me today, because everything we have to view this 49ers team through, every lens we're viewing it through is the Super Bowl lens, right? Like, this isn't the Chicago Bears where you're going, okay, yeah, any momentum you can get with Caleb Williams is great. Like, no, this team is trying to win a Super Bowl. And I was hoping after the bye week that they'd come out and they'd be sharp. I was expecting today, and you guys know me, I never think the Niners are going to blow someone out. But I went in today going, it's probably going to look like the Jags game last year, where they just kind of roll. Like 34-3, I think was the final in that game. That's what I thought was going to happen today. And it just didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because even in 2019, they had some ugly wins, right? They went to the Super Bowl. But they had some ugly wins. There was a game in Arizona on Halloween on a Thursday night that was close. Mm-hmm. Arizona outscored them 11-0 in the 4th quarter of that game. It got way too close for comfort, right? The Saints game, obviously, like, we thought the Niners had the league's best defense. The Saints, I think, scored 45. 49ers scored 48, of course. But like, what I struggle with is, like, obviously the special teams have been an issue season long. Mm-hmm. And Jake Moody has been mostly fine. Like, you think in a big spot, like, he might miss one, right? Like, you don't feel great, but like, the Super Bowl is kind of emblematic of Moody, right? Like, 3 for 3. I think he had a 55-yarder. but then I was like, oh yeah, and they had the extra point blocked in a game that went to overtime. Right? Like he has a very high ceiling as a kicker, given like how, like when you watch him like nail a 55-yarder, you're like, oh, that dude can kick.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yes.
But he'll also have days. I mean, he hasn't had any day. This was his worst game as a pro.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
So this is like, while he's not entirely trustworthy, it's like, it's just tough. Like, do you expect him to miss 3 kicks like every game now after this? And I'm asking like, as like rhetorically, like, is this like,
no?
Do you think, right? So if you think Moody is probably going to be better than he was today going forward, then you come out of this game being like, all right, they cleaned some of that stuff up. They're going to ultimately be fine.
Sure.
A win against I think the Bucs are probably better than their record, even, and I thought Baker played his ass off. I thought they were definitely better than the sum of their parts today. Like, you look at the injuries that they're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't an easy game, and then they definitely should have won more comfortably. So I'm not like, I think you feel good about the win just because like it is a win, right? They only punted once, on their first drive of the game.
Yes.
Yeah, they could have been better in the red zone. It was Christian McCaffrey's first time in pads since early August, right? Like he said he hadn't been in pads in 8 weeks. So the NFC West, I still think, is very, very winnable. As good as Arizona continues to kind of look here, I still think the Niners can beat them. They can go there and beat them, and they can run the table in the division. So I understand the frustrations, particularly because these have been season-long special teams issues. But I'm not coming out of it really thinking like they can't. This is, I still think they should get to the playoffs. Like, I would be pretty stunned if they don't get to the playoffs, honestly. And I think they should win the NFC West. I just think that, like, man, those days of just expecting them to roll these other teams like they did so often in 2023, I think we got to throw those out.
Yeah, so real quick, on the Jake Moody thing, I think he was, because I said on the internet that I didn't think he was bad. And I don't. Like, there are bad kickers in the league that you see and it's like, man, that is not a good player. I don't think that's Moody. I think he's fine. But he is going to always have working against him his first ever kicks in front of people were in the preseason and he missed them. As the 99th overall pick, and this is not anti-Jake Moody, I'm trying to explain why, because the sentiment to me was, well, he is bad because do you ever feel good when he goes out to take a kick? It's kind of like, well, no, I'm never confident I'm never super confident that he's going to make it, but that's because his first real kicks in the preseason, he missed. And then his first ever game winner there in Cleveland, he missed. And so the intro to him was him missing field goals, and his first major kick, the first time you noticed him on the field in the regular season was when it was supposed to be a game winner, and he missed it. And so now Jake Moody forever, he could hit 100% of his kicks the rest of his career, but there are people who are not going to feel good when he takes the field because that's their lasting memory of him. And so that's why I think it's not as bad as it feels with Jake Moody long term. Today was a calamity of monstrous proportions. But he hit the game winner, and the 49ers aren't going to move on from him. So, like, buckle up. Just
right.
We can have a whole separate conversation about their guys they signed off the street going 8 for 8 on field goal attempts, and I think Anders Carlson missed an extra point. I think it was him. Missed an extra point, but they went 8 for 8 on field goal attempts, and the value of kickers and should you draft one. We can do that all day, but like, I don't think Jake Moody is doomed from here on out.
No,
I think he's going to recover and be okay.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of like, I'm making conflicting statements a little bit. Like, I'm not freaking out, but also we need to lower the expectations. Like, I'm saying both things, right? And I understand why, like, how that, but I do think it's that nuance. Like, this team is good enough to go to the playoffs, but also probably not as good as last year. Like, probably at least a step down from last year.
Yeah, definitely. Yes. But on the other hand, and this is something you brought up a little bit earlier, and it's where there's the part of me that like knee-jerk reaction wants to go, that was a mess. They're hosed. Like they're screwed. But then there's this other part of me that you mentioned, the Christian McCaffrey aspect of this. This was his first game since the Super Bowl. And the Niners had Debo limited all week and McCaffrey limited all week and Jennings limited all week. And maybe this was just like quote unquote week one where it was a little slapdash and there were mistakes and a couple of things snowballed and made it look worse than it was, but they're going to come back next week and look a lot better. That wouldn't shock me at all. And maybe Christian McCaffrey's impact, like you already saw it today, the checkdowns from Brock Purdy, I didn't think Brock was great early on. I thought he missed some throws we're pretty used to seeing him make and missed them badly. But he was so much more willing to just check the ball down. And I think that's something that as we move forward here over the next couple of weeks is going to have a pretty substantial benefit on this offense. And if they start scoring 30 a game again, we're having a lot different conversation about what this team is and is capable of. Right.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of positivity when you just look at what happened on the offensive side. Like Juwan Jennings, 7 catches for 11 targets. Ricky Pearsall, 4 catches on 6 targets, 73 yards. I think it was a 44-yard touchdown, something like that. Not like he ran pretty well at the combine. He was 4.4s.
Mm-hmm.
But just like getting to the end zone in that moment, and despite maybe not having like super elite speed, I just think Ricky Pearsall is one of the most important players they have.
100%
forward, because he was their number 2, essentially their number 2 receiver today.
Yeah,
right.
He was like the guy. Go ahead. He was the guy on that last drive. It was him and Jennings.
Yeah. And Debo's not going to be like Mr. Route Runner, Mr. like I'm going to go get open in a big spot.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be, the gadget guy he's not a gadget guy, but like sometimes you just have to manufacture getting him the ball. Right?
Yeah.
Which is different. Like he's not Justin Jefferson, who's just like, yeah, he's just going to go get open no matter what.
Yeah, those quick slants, end arounds, jet sweeps.
Yeah, and obviously
screens.
Yeah, and obviously Kittle is still the guy in the red zone, but like Jennings and Pearsall are going to be getting a bunch of these targets with Brandon Ayuk out. And I thought to get a big day from Jennings in his return from the injury, to get Pearsall's first touchdown, and you can kind of see the confidence in him growing. I think that's really important. And look, like McCaffrey I thought he was fine. There were 2 or 3 like nice runs. I didn't think the Niners offensive line was winning a whole lot against that Bucs offensive
didn't
front.
Feel like it.
But McCaffrey still had 6 catches for 68 yards.
I think we're going to get a lot of like yellow and orange from the 49ers offensive line tomorrow on PFF.
And a lot of plays where like Trent Williams is blocking a blitzer and then letting somebody come free. And, like Trent obviously is elite and we don't need to talk about Trent Williams, but it was interesting. Like, is Trent making the right play? Like, is that the right read? Because like and it's typical of Todd Bowles, right? Like we talked about his blitzing leading up to the game. He's going to blitz and he's going to heat up the quarterback a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it did feel like the 49ers the offensive line was not making the right reads in pass protection and letting the wrong guys go through. And I think it happened more than once with Trent. And I'm not going to pretend like I'm a big offensive line guy who knows what their responsibilities are. But Brock, there were a lot of unblocked pass rushers getting to Brock Purdy. But despite that, like for Purdy to go 25 of 36, 353 yards and 2 touchdowns, and I thought the throw to Kittle, rolling left, making the play outside of structure, throwing it where only Kittle could catch it. I know it was a little wobbly, but I thought that was one of Purdy's best throws I've seen him make, just given the circumstances, how accurate it was, the level of difficulty, the moment of the game, like super, super clutch moment in that game. like these things to me are all positives. Like it's just the kicking game has just taken the fun out of the win. It feels like.
And the other thing with that is the muffed punt did the same. Like the muffed punt is the reason that was close and that those Moody kicks mattered a lot. Because the Bucs prior to that punt had gone 6 plays, 27 yards, 4 plays, 16 yards, 13 for 58 with a field goal, 3 and out where they gained no yards, 3 and out where they gained 6 yards. Those were their drives. Midway through the early into the third quarter when that muffed punt happened. And then they go 4 plays, 21 yards, score a touchdown. All of a sudden the game's tied and it's like, wait, what the? So that was even, I think, a bigger play in this one. But the Purdy touchdown throw to Kittle and the long completion to CMC earlier in that drive were 2 of the plays that, like, this game was a perfect encapsulation of why I find Brock Purdy so. It's why I can't, like. I'm obviously in on Brock Purdy. I think he's good. He should be the Niners quarterback moving forward. But the reason I'm walking into the pool instead of diving in head first. I started in the shallow end like a psychopath, and I'm making my way down to the deep end. If you walk into a pool, you're a crazy person. I'm sorry. Unless like you have a physical ailment that doesn't allow you to jump into a pool, in which fine. But if you can jump into a pool and you choose to walk in, insane. But that's what I've done with Purdy.
Hard disagree on the pool thing. But go ahead.
You're a crazy person. No, that's fine.
You ever have a drink in your hand when you go in the pool?
Yeah, dude, and it splashes about when I dive in. No, but anyways, no. Maybe it's a bad metaphor, but the reason I'm walking slowly into the pool here with Brock Purdy is because he's gonna miss a bunch of throws like he did in the first quarter today. There were throws high and behind guys and way out of bounds. It was ugly. But then he makes a couple of nice throws over the middle. And then he has the wherewithal to know that Christian McCaffrey is in one-on-one coverage with a linebacker. There's no safety over the top. Pressure's coming. So I got to put some air under this ball to let my running back run underneath it. And threw it to the perfect spot. Like, that wasn't a guess. That wasn't, oh my God, I just got to get rid of it and hope it lands somewhere. Like, no, that was a calculated throw. And then that touchdown throw to Kittle. Like, those aren't plays that every quarterback in the league is making. And that's why it's like, man, he is a really, really good player. But I think that baked into his, what was his stat line today? 25 of 36 for 353 and 2 touchdowns. Like, that's insane. That's a ridiculous stat line. 69.4% completion rate. He's 9.8 yards per attempt. But baked into that 25 of 36, I think is just going to be like 3 to 5 throws a game that are just errant. And you got to hope that those don't get intercepted.
Yeah, but like, so we had similar thoughts about Jimmy Garoppolo, right? Like, but Jimmy's felt like
way more laborious.
Jimmy would panic, and then it would be, like he would hold on to the ball for too long, force it over the middle, and it would get intercepted or be an interceptable type pass.
Yeah.
Purdy will miss some throws, but they're not like he's missing to decent spots. Like the one on the first drive, it was the first or second drive to Pearsall, right? I think it was a third down. It was wide left and out of bounds on an out route. That, like, it looked like good coverage to me. Like it looked like not a throwaway, but it was like, all right, you're missing in the right spot at least.
Yeah, that's
like,
fair. That's fair.
We're not on pins and needles wondering if Brock's going to throw an interceptable pass. It's like maybe it'll be high and wide occasionally. The one to Jennings where he was like fading right and trying to hit Jennings on like a 3-yard throw over the middle, and like it was super high, and then Jennings bats it up, and nobody was around the ball. But that felt like it should have been picked. But I'm okay. Like, well, what's interesting to me about Brock is he's had to play a much different type of football this year than last year. Last year it was a lot of like benefit from the system and the guys around you. This year, it feels like the complete opposite. It's like, hey, man, make all your reads. Here's a 7-step drop. Your receivers aren't going to get any separation, and you're going to go make something happen. Yeah, like that's – you've been watching Brock Purdy closely. Like that's what the season's been. It's been the polar opposite of last year, particularly without Christian McCaffrey. Though I did notice that and maybe Kyle Shanahan really only likes doing this with McCaffrey in there, but like we joke about flow, like the misdirection run, wide zone one way, and then you have a tight end or slot receiver sneaking cross over the middle of the field. The one today, Kittle
game-changing play.
Made Devontae David miss and then gets a huge gain and a bunch of yak. Like there are opportunities for Kyle Shanahan to make life a little bit easier for Brock Purdy now. It feels like if that, like, I don't know why they wouldn't be there before necessarily. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey's a great player with a lot of gravity, but like, I just think, like Brock's going to be fine. Like we can say we're at this point where like, I don't know how great Brock was today. It was like, well, he threw for 353 yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't turn the ball over.
Hey, he almost had that fumble
in a road win.
That fumble.
The fumble was bad.
He can't have that.
Was bad. And he got very lucky. Yeah.
No, but like that's just it's nitpicking now. The conversation with Jimmy Garoppolo was like, is this guy good or not? And what?
Well, the conversation about Jimmy Garoppolo was shaped largely by the fact that he had an opportunity to win the Super Bowl. He had to make one throw and he didn't.
Yeah.
So like that kind of colored how everyone felt about Jimmy.
Yeah.
Whereas Brock, like, under the old overtime playoff rules, Brock would be a Super Bowl champion right now.
Yeah.
Sending up game-winning field goal drive in overtime.
Yeah. It's so funny how perceptions are altered. No, Brock was good today. I thought it was funny to me. It was almost jarring when Christian McCaffrey got rolling a little bit, how different he looks running the ball than Jordan Mason. I got so used to watching Jordan Mason just pinball off everybody en route to the second level, and watching a running back like take a handoff and decisively make a cut back and run through a hole and get into the second level without getting touched was like, oh yeah, that's what this looks like. That's why Christian McCaffrey's different.
I feel like if you're a running back, like if you're a high school offensive coordinator, or you like have a very like a much better level of like exactly what you're looking at, or better understanding of exactly what you're looking at than a couple of podcasters, no offense. I would imagine Christian McCaffrey is like running back porn. Like, oh, you want to see a guy get to the right spot and get as many yards as he possibly can, given the blocking in front of him and like the physicality he plays with for like not the biggest dude. Like, I just feel like he's so unique in that, like, whenever he gets the ball, he's going to go to the right place. And that's been really Kyle Shanahan's whole thing. Like, running backs are kind of similar to quarterbacks in the way we talk about, oh, this guy's a Kyle Shanahan running back, right? Like Shanahan makes it so much easier. Like Shanahan just wants both those positions to make the right reads and go to the right spot.
Right. Execute the play the way he wants it executed.
So that's why like if you're a running back and you might not have like super elite athleticism, but you can just go to the right spot and read the play correctly. Like that's a skill, and that's what Kyle Shanahan values, and the way he coaches, where if you can just do that thing, you're going to be effective. That's ultimately why so many running backs are good under Kyle Shanahan, right? It's just like know exactly where to go, be decisive, and hit that hole.
Yeah, and it helps that Christian McCaffrey's like a generational talent.
Well, exactly. That's my point. Like Christian McCaffrey does those things, but he's also like a Hall of Fame level talent of a running back.
Yeah, 19. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, for him to have 19 touches and almost 100 or
107.
107 yards. Yeah. Just doing math on the fly. Speaks volumes. Like, and if he's healthy, that's huge for them, because there is going to be a point. I do think there's going to be a point where Brock Purdy is going to like get into a groove, which it feels like he hasn't really been in rhythm all season too, which has been another weird part about it. It's like his numbers have been good and he's been like making throws downfield, but it's like, so much of the stuff is out of structure. It's like, is Brock Purdy ever in rhythm this year? Like last year, it felt like he was in rhythm the entire time. Yeah. But now I think there might be a chance for him to get in rhythm with Christian McCaffrey in.
Hey, can I tell you an insane statistic?
Yes.
Oh, thank God. The Buccaneers' longest completion today was 15 yards, which in itself is ridiculous. I still think Baker Mayfield's toe was hurting him to the point that he had a really hard time throwing downfield. Even the one deep throw he did make that Bernardo Green knocked away, you saw him like awkwardly move his foot after he threw it. The 49ers had every single player who caught a pass today. They had 5 different players catch a pass. Every single one had a completion or a reception of at least 30 yards.
That's crazy.
That's outrageous.
Can we talk about the 4th down play where Nick Bosa just kind of like held Baker Mayfield's arm for what felt like 15 seconds instead of trying to tackle him or make him uncomfortable?
I would love to talk about that. I would love nothing more than to talk about that specific play.
What? Why don't you tackle him? Why don't you try to bring him to the ground?
Great question.
I know he's hurt. He's dealing with what I don't know.
So
whatever.
I guess he said after the game. I guess he said he was trying to avoid getting a horse collar penalty. And look, if that's the case, I need the 49ers defense to forget that penalties exist for a bit. Just go play football. You're letting Patrick Mahomes run free down the sideline because you don't want to get a penalty for hitting him, and you're letting Baker Mayfield complete potentially game-changing 4th down, 4th and 7 or whatever it was, where if you get a stop, the game's over, and you're not tackling because you're afraid of a horse collar. Like, dude, just go fucking play. What? Yeah. I'm sorry. I didn't want to get called. I don't care. If you drag him down and you have a horse collar, all right, stuff happens. Hey, but just grabbing his arm and not trying to tackle him like that, you're literally paid to put the quarterback on the ground. So try and do that to the best of your ability.
You already have a grip on him. Like maybe it's a hip drop tackle thing because like maybe in his mind he was like, all right, I have if I just like leave my feet and put all of my weight, maybe that's like he thought he was going to get a hip drop tackle. I don't know. I'm not trying to defend it or justify it. I just like trying to figure out what went through his mind because a horse collar doesn't make sense. You're not going to get a horse collar from grabbing his arm. Yeah. So I don't know, man. Just play is there. That entire one of the most bizarre things. That entire possession was bizarre.
It was okay. So
face mask,
and then Evan Anderson hands to the face. It was 4 penalties. Tampa Bay went 58 yards on that play. They gained 19 of their own yards.
Right.
Or, I'm sorry, 58 yards on that drive. They gained 19 of their own yards because there were 39 yards in penalties.
And there was even one on the 4th down play. Like had Bosa even made the sack.
Oh yeah.
There was a flag there.
Yeah, man. It's just like that drive in particular was I think a product of it being so hot and them having been on the field so much. But that was like, all right, hands to the face happens. A roughing the passer because the guy ducked into your arm. Like it's a stupid call, but it happens. Like the fact that all 4 of those plays happened in succession on a potential game-winning drive for Tampa Bay was one of those things that as it was happening, I'm preparing to go on the radio at 95.7 The Game. I host overtime on 95.7 The Game with Niners postgame. And I don't know why that was so hard to get out of my goddamn mouth. Pause. But as that drive is happening, it was just like, oh, this is just the season. Like this is just what this season was doomed to be from the jump. They're going to lose a game because they missed 3 field goals, muffed a punt, and then had 50 yards of penalties in one drive where, you know what? It's really hard to like, none of those were bad calls. None of them were like, oh, what a stupid play. He can't like, no, it's just stuff that happens during a football game that gets flagged all the time. They just happen to get flagged for it a bunch of times in a row. Like, that's tough. It's a tough way to go.
Did you know?
The fact they stiffened up and didn't allow a touchdown there, though, was super impressive. I was really, really impressed.
Yeah. They definitely could have given up a touchdown there.
Yep.
Did you know Baker Mayfield was the quarterback version of Mike Allstott? Because I did not.
Yeah, no, that was news to me. I had no idea.
He's just impossible to tackle, I guess.
I went in thinking that Baker Mayfield is like, I am a Baker Mayfield guy. I think Baker Mayfield is a really, really good player. Even last year, I think we talked about this on the pregame pod, but even last year against the Niners, he didn't have a great stat line, but he made half a dozen throws in that game. They're like, God damn. Like, that's why that guy's the number one pick. Like, he's a hooper. And then my cat is trying to walk across my keyboard. I don't want to shut the stream down or something. So doesn't want to spend time with me until I'm talking on the podcast, and he wants to sit all over my stuff. It's fine. But the way Baker played today under the circumstances that he was in, with his starting left tackle out and his top two wide receivers out, I was, man, that was in a toe that was causing him to miss the first 2 days of practice and then take his cleat off between drives because his foot hurt so bad. The fact that he's spinning away from these pressures and making throws and, man, just a really, really excellent performance from Baker. That's very impressive.
So I'm looking this up because I think the answer to this question is dependent entirely on his age. So Baker Mayfield, 29. Ooh, this is interesting. Is Baker Mayfield the best bridge quarterback of all time?
Ooh. No,
Is he
is he a bridge quarterback?
Smith? That's what if he were younger, I would say no, but he's 29.
How many years did the Bucs give him? I'm looking up his contract right now. Because if I don't think he's a bridge quarterback, that feels disrespectful to Baker Mayfield.
3 years, $100 million.
Yeah, 3 and 100. See, they committed to him.
It's not 5.
Yeah, if we are 100%, if we're 100%, Trevor Lawrence might be the best bridge quarterback of all time. If you had to win a game right now, are you taking Baker Mayfield or Trevor Lawrence?
Baker.
I'm 100% taking Baker, and I don't even have to think about it.
The Jags stink.
Are you taking Baker or Brock Purdy?
Brock.
I think so. I think I'm taking Brock too.
But that's not disrespectful.
Baker's way more.
Like, Baker's
awesome. Baker's way more susceptible to the like face palm throw than Brock is, I think. But yeah.
Yeah.
Salute to Baker.
I just think. Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question. So, what if Baker was a Niners quarterback last year? Are they still the 1 seed?
Yeah, I think so.
So I think so. So in essence, Brock Purdy and Baker aren't that far apart.
No, I don't think they are.
Right.
No, they are very close. If we're ranking quarterbacks, they're very close to me.
Baker does seem to get hurt a lot.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm
not saying that's his fault. He just feels like he's banged up a lot.
Yeah, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not totally sure that he has completely wiped away the like back-breaking, game-changing bad interception.
Sure.
Which it feels like he's super, super capable of.
Yeah.
I mentioned this earlier, but it's worth mentioning again. Worldwide City says, we're good. KC had to go to overtime to beat them. Yeah, that's like the Buccaneers don't stink. This was not a like, how did the 49... It was just they had opportunities to really put the game away in ways they hadn't this year, and it just kind of looked like all their other games this year. Like that's why it's a little bit of a bummer. Buccaneers wide receivers today had 4 catches for 28 yards on 10 targets. That's where their receiving core's at. Yikes.
Yeah. Like
Tough.
The Niners defense.
I thought they were good today.
Well, I thought they were good with the exception of the last drive. The last drive was just like idiotic.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. We would be remiss if we did not talk about friend of the program, Tabor Pepper, getting into a fight with Deebo Samuel on the sideline.
Also, 2 friends of the program. We hate to see
Oh
it.
yeah, no, great, great point. Maybe that's what they were arguing about. There's now a competition in the locker room.
Right. My appearance on Candy Cron was better. No, mine was better.
That's actually what he said. So Tabor hit us up. He didn't, but for the sake of the joke, he did. I didn't want it to actually. What happened was Moody missed that third kick, and Debo ran up and said, "That's why you'll never be on Candle Cron." And Tabor said, "That's not true," and that's it.
Right. Probably. That's probably it. Yeah, I think.
Can I get? Go ahead. You talking?
If you're a star player on the Niners, you could look at a few instances where special teams has basically made the season way more difficult than it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And like if the Niners lose today, like I wouldn't blame Debo for feeling that way. Like you probably don't want to do it in the moment on the field, particularly when there's so much time left.
Mm-hmm.
And like Moody has an opportunity to make, to like kick again. Maybe you just wait till like halftime or after the game to lay into somebody like that so the cameras aren't around. But I don't really have a problem with it. Like it's not great, but it's not what you want, but it's like the special teams got to carry their end of the water too.
Yeah.
And they haven't. So
and this is So Debo after the game he said like it was out of character, but it also didn't sound like he was like going like, "You suck." It sounded to me like it was more like a "come on, like figure it out" kind of, obviously probably different words than that. But like that was kind of the vibe. But at that point, saying anything to the kicker is like, dog, he knows. Right. Which is why and right. Tabor's gonna go defend his guy. But that to me was not a frustration of, and this is exactly the point you're making, I think. Debo going and saying anything to Jake Moody, regardless of what he said. What he said matters less than the fact that he said something. That's not a frustration from today. That is a built-up frustration with special teams, with just how the season is going in general. Debo's out there playing with rib and oblique injuries. They just got Christian McCaffrey back. Ayuk's already out for the year. Like, it's just been a struggle, right? Like, it's just, And to have the kicker go out and miss 3 kicks is like, dude. Like, I imagine that's pretty frustrating for a guy in a team that it was 4-4 going into today, when they were hoping to be a Super Bowl contender, and they haven't looked like it. And that was a really easy way to kind of haul off and vent that frustration. That's what it looked like to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I fully agree. Like, I just think, I mean, I'm not trying to say it's a great look. Like, I don't think, ideally, you don't want that stuff to happen on TV, but I don't really ever have a problem with players yelling at each other. Like, sometimes it needs to happen. If it would have turned into a fight, like, obviously that's problematic, right? Like, I think you can make an argument that Debo's probably in the right, or not in the right, but I would say you can make an argument he's not in the wrong by voicing his frustrations to a special teamer. And I don't think Tabor's in the wrong for supporting his guy if, what he said was unnecessary. Because to your point, like, the kicker knows, like, he knows it's not good to miss kicks. He knows, like, his career could be over if he keeps doing this shit. So, yeah, I just, do I think, like, had they lost that game, is, like, the locker room fractured? Because, like, no, I don't think that's, if you had, like, if you had Debo and Fred Warner, like, making passive aggressive comments about, like, well, we did our part, but the defense wasn't good enough, or the defense was good enough, but the offense didn't put in the end zone.
Right.
That's what a fractured locker room looks like, not a frustrated star receiver yelling at a kicker who missed, 2, or was it 3 at that point? Yeah, it was his 3rd one.
Yeah.
Kicker missed 3 kicks. Like, the star might yell at you. That might be part of what happens.
Yeah, man. I'm not taking anything away from it from, like, a long-term standpoint. We saw Travis Kelce during the Super Bowl body check Andy Reid.
Right, exactly.
Like I mean, this is a kind of this stuff happens, man. I don't take anything away from it. Big picture. Debo even said after the game, like, I'll apologize to him, like it's not. We'll get over it.
Yeah.
So I don't. Also, if there's beef between two players on the team, a beef between your long snapper and a wide receiver is probably not that big of a deal.
Right. And I'm pretty sure their lockers are like on the opposite side of the locker rooms from each other. Like they're like 120 feet apart.
Yeah.
Billy in the chat, if you're not watching on YouTube,
Billy Lee?
Subscribe to
Billy
our YouTube
Baby
channel.
Billy?
Billy Lee said in the chat, maybe we need the blueprint of the Texans. Texans, as we speak,
Baby
are
Billy's
up
Bible
23-7 on the Lions.
Nice. Shout out to
So,
D'Amico.
yeah, I think the reason why I would, this kind of goes back to like the opening conversation about expectations and stuff. The Lions are having that season that the Niners had last year, right?
Mm-hmm. Where they're just steamrolling everybody, yeah.
They're steamrolling everybody, and it's like, yeah, there's nobody better than them in the NFC right now. They're still prone to a bad game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like in Houston. So if you're optimistic about the Niners, you point to the fact that, like, yeah, even the Lions are beatable, you know? Like I still go back, like, looking at the standings and think, all right, if the Niners can just get to the 4 seed, can you host Sam Darnold in Minnesota and win? Absolutely.
Sam Darnold in Minnesota, who struggled against Jacksonville today.
Right. Can you host Washington? Like, yeah, that might be tough because Jane Daniels is really good, but like a rookie making his first career playoff start on the road against the defending conference champions, like it would be tough, but like you just got to get to the 4 seed, right? And then Atlanta's the 3 seed right now. You know what I mean? So like, you could still win a couple playoff games. You just have to win your division. And like I think the Lions game tonight, depending on how it ends, but the first half, it just kind of proves that like these teams might ultimately be closer than it seems like because the margins are just so thin in the league.
Did you see how Pittsburgh won today against Washington?
I saw the very end. I didn't see saw the 4th down offsides and the
If you missed it, Pittsburgh is up by 1 with a minute left, and they have a 4th and 1 like right near midfield, and so their 3rd down play gets them to 4th and 1, and they race up to the line. Very obvious, like, hey, we're gonna try and get him to jump. Wilson gets under center, hard count, immediate jump.
And it was that Illinois defensive tackle. That
Johnny Newton.
Johnny Newton, the guy, I think we talked about him a little bit.
Yeah, we talked about him a lot
for the Niners potentially. It was him who jumped.
Tough stuff for the Rook.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Niners won. That's the other thing. Bottom line to all this, and I wrote about this a little bit at NinersWire, NinersWire.com if you want to check it out. Publishes tomorrow. They needed to win this game. Yeah. You couldn't fall to 4-5 and realistically feel good about being in the playoff hunt, especially with Arizona dominating the Jets the way they did. So they needed to win today regardless. Like, they still have plenty to figure out. They got to clean up the special team stuff. They got to figure out the red zone stuff with Christian McCaffrey. Like, no doubt 1,000%. But also, they got the W. They're 5-4. They're a game back in the division. They're a couple games back of a wild card spot. They handed the Buccaneers, who were right with them in the wild card, a loss. The Cowboys, who were right there in the wild card, lost again. So overall, needed a win, and they got it.
Yeah, they're 1 game back of the wild card spot. They're currently in the 8th seed. Packers are 7th at 6-3. Niners are the only 5-4 team in the entire NFL right now, which is kind of weird.
That's really weird.
Not that means anything, but like they're a bunch of anyway. But yeah, I think they're fine. Like, yeah, it's frustrating that it wasn't a blowout because it probably would have been a blowout if Moody makes all 3 of those kicks and they don't have the muff punt. Again, that's 16 points. Like, even if 3 of those things don't happen, 3 of those 4 things don't happen, it's probably a double-digit win, and you feel a lot different about it.
Yeah.
But to your point, a win is really all that matters. Just get the win against an NFC team. Go into next week against Seattle. If you clean it up against Seattle, you'll further yourself from the rest of the division a little bit, or at least get closer. And, you know, like they're okay. They're not a bad spot.
Yeah, I think they're fine.
If Moody misses a couple field goals next week, he's probably cut, right?
Does he make the game winner? Because you're only as good as your last kick, or whatever Kyle Shanahan said.
If he misses 2 and they lose by a score,
at that point, yeah, man, you can't mess around with having that guy trying to figure it out when you're in these games now that are going to be decided by thin margins.
Because I think it's ultimately like a 2-game leash.
Yeah, probably. Or maybe if he misses a couple kicks, they have kickers in for practice and see who they like better going into the week. But maybe they bring Anders Carlson back on the practice squad.
Because they'll punt on 3rd-round picks. They've done it plenty of times.
I'll tell you what, if he had missed the game winner, I think the conversation, and even if they had gone on to win, I think the conversation's different.
Conversation's different. I think he would be on the team, and then if he costs them another game, then he's gone.
All right.
Because I think they would say, and I'm not saying I agree with this, like, that was his first game back from a 5-game absence, high ankle sprain or whatever it was.
Yeah, I'm not like I said, I'm not worried about Jake Moody long term. Today was a mess though.
Home to Seattle. I like their chances early on.
I do too. I'm not super sold on Seattle. Seattle is coming off its bye week, right? Am I making that up? Yeah, Seattle coming off its bye week, so maybe they'll have a little something different. But the Niners showed enough today. Like, it's not like they got this awesome game from Christian McCaffrey, and it's like, God damn, they could still only score 23 points. I think the Bucs really did everything they could to sell out to stop the run today. And the Niners offensive line did not do well.
Yeah.
I expect it to be better moving forward.
Me too.
And if the run game's better, maybe they're more confident using it in the red zone. I don't know. We'll see.
I think it's okay to feel good about this win, as painful as it might have been. And as much as some people in the chat have said it feels like a loss, I think what you got from the offense was encouraging enough. The defense until the last drive, I think, was encouraging enough. It's just still the special teams, but I think the arrow is still pointing up. They won 2 games in a row for the first time this season. How crazy is that? It's November.
Damn.
And they haven't won 2 consecutive games until now.
That's so crazy.
So baby steps, man. Baby steps.
And I think they've won 5 of their last 6 post-bye games under Kyle Shanahan.
That sounds right. You remember when they got Christian McCaffrey at the trade deadline 2 years ago? It wasn't the first game that was great because that was the Chiefs game. They got their asses kicked.
Mm-hmm.
It was the second game against the Rams, division game, where he blew up, and then it was off to the races from there. So, just saying. Maybe
Watch
that's
out.
coming.
Watch out, everyone.
Who knows?
No, that's wrong, actually. Wasn't their bye week after the Chiefs game? And then they played the Chargers and won 22-16. And that Chargers team was like the historically bad run defense, and the Niners just couldn't run the ball against them. And they didn't have any receivers.
I thought it was... No, it was Chiefs, Rams, then the bye, then the Chargers.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. Okay, yes. So the Chargers were after the bye. That's right. Okay. Yes. Correct.
So
shout out to Christian McCaffrey.
Christian McCaffrey's second game after being a midseason acquisition was when he threw caught and ran for a touchdown.
Nuts.
So maybe, we want to look at past trends. Maybe CMC's in for a big game against Seattle.
You want to talk about Prize Picks real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Like we kind of had sorry if you rocked with our picks with our lineups this week. Not good for your boy. I went with I had a 4-pick entry, and I had Cade Otton less than 57.5 receiving yards. Nailed that one. He had 35. But then I had Brock Purdy less than 31.5 pass attempts. He had 36. I had George Kittle more than 4.5 receptions. He had 3. And I had Deebo Samuel less than 58.5 receiving yards. He had 62. And that, friends, is how you hold a giant L in daily fantasy.
Yeah, that's tough. I had a 4-pick flex play. I felt really good about it. And honestly, looking back, the way the game should have gone had the Niners special teams not completely let them down, I feel like I would have won here.
Sure.
So I had Baker Mayfield fewer than 260.5 passing and rushing yards. Nailed that.
Oh,
119. Yeah. I had Deebo Samuel scoring, which was a demon play, but I didn't feel great about it. It was a demon play, and it was a flex play, so I was okay without hitting that one. These next two I thought were stone cold locks. Brock Purdy, I had fewer than 21 completions. He ended up with 25. He's only throwing late in the game because the game's tied and the 49ers are going to go try to win. Had Jake Moody made all those field goals, they're running the ball way more. There's no way Brock Purdy gets a 21 completion. So I'm fired up at the special teams just like everybody else. Cade Otton, had the 49ers made their field goals, he would have had far more than 6 receptions, which I had more than. He had 5, including one that bounced off his chest along the sideline.
Just unbelievable. Unreal.
So yeah, like the logic had the game gone the way it should have gone with the kicks being made, I would have hit on Purdy, I would have hit on Cade, and I'd be rolling in some winnings with 3 correct picks out of 4 in the flex play. So
well,
it's fine.
Fine. Prize Picks does put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. So when our picks do hit, we can get our money in as quick as 15 minutes. And they did invent the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. So while they are a very generous daily fantasy sports company, I don't think that we can give them a call and go, hey, in theory, Chris's entries were right. The spirit of the choices were spot on. I don't think that'll work.
Like if I would have gotten an ace, I would have gotten 21. I was showing a face card. Like, give me the money. It's the right play.
No, that's why daily fantasy is the best, because you don't have to worry about having an ace. You can go in and you are.
It's not gambling.
You know these teams and these players. Yeah,
it is not gambling.
Insane. You know these teams and these players. So go in there, join Prize Picks today by downloading the Prize Picks app. And while you're there, use code Candlestick to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, that's code Candlestick at the Prize Picks app to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. All you got to do, you pick 2 to 6 players. You pick more or less on their stat projections. And then if you're better at this than Chris and I, you will watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks, run your game. Tough. I've been crushing it in professional basketball, though.
I'm particularly salty because I won my last 2 Prize Picks plays. So
yeah, you felt like you were getting hot.
It was tough to see the hot streak come to an end, but
it's all right.
We'll be back out there next week.
Back on the horse.
Back out there next week. May or may not be looking at some demon plays for CMC as we speak.
All right, man. You have anything else on this game for now?
I don't. I got nothing else. We can talk about Jake Moody later in the week. Can't wait to dive in. But yeah.
Great. Thanks everybody for listening. Thanks everybody for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up button. We would really appreciate that. And also subscribe to the channel if you have not. We are nearing 1,000 subscribers, and we would really like to get to that plateau. So please subscribe if you haven't. Tell your friends to subscribe. Yeah, and pick a Niner fan. Let them know shoot them our link, youtube.com/@Candlestick Chronicles Podcast, and let them know that that this is your, I don't want to say your favorite, because maybe it's not, but one of the 49ers podcasts you listen to, and hopefully it's your favorite. You can also subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks everybody for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you next time.